As you watch right now, I'm currently on a train up to Liverpool ahead of Arsenal's game against Everton. But I didn't want to leave you in the lurch, as always, and I wanted to bring you an episode of the usual 8 a.m. So I hope you're doing good and well. And sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of today's Arsenal News Show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys and girls on another episode of what is the Arsenal News Show. I'm joined, as usual, for these pre-recorded episodes by a guest to talk about all the latest Arsenal ongoings. And it's a nostalgic episode for me because I'm chatting to an old friend of mine who's not been on the channel for a little while. And if you are a long-time subscriber, and you'll have to go back like way before we even started doing 8 a.m. shows on the channel, which is kind of well far back to when we used to do Sunday podcasts. And that was kind of the only real content we put out until I decided to sell my soul and do shows every single morning and sacrifice a lay-in every day. I'm very happy to be joined by Tops, who is now from T-Chanzo Sports. How you doing, mate? You good? You well?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you very much for having me back on. It's been a long overdue return, but I'm glad to be back on the channel. Obviously, like you said, a bit of a retro feel on the show. But yeah, I'm glad to be back, man. Glad to talk football, you guys. And yeah, should be a good show, man.
Yeah, I was trying to think who was on the bill regularly for our pods back in the day. Like, obviously, I know our good friend Judges used to come on quite a lot. Ken was on quite a bit.
Harry Simeon as well. He was on.
Yeah, so many people that are still doing stuff so regularly around shows, and it's so good to see. And now, of course, you've had music release. You get a music release on Radio 1 I've seen, and it's mad. Talk to me about it.
Yeah, it's been crazy, man. Like I said, obviously started my journey doing the YouTube and being a content creator. Then I took a little bit of a break and then started to delve into music. Obviously, I'm a creative person anyway. So yeah, delved into a few music bits. Had obviously my first song called Social on Spotify, Apple Music, all those platforms. That was actually played on EastEnders, I think 10 times overall. So that was obviously a fantastic achievement. And
so it was like the second most famous song on that show, other than the
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. And ironically, the way they played my song was just before the
Oh, so really?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Now you got to remix that little riff. That's what you got to do.
Yeah, that's it, man. Just to link it in between the two, so you got best of both worlds kind of thing. So yeah, so that was obviously fantastic. That actually happened, and then released another song called Say Yes, more of a dance song. Obviously, Social more like an Afrobeat kind of style, but this one's more like a dance song. And yeah, that got played into Love Island, got obviously Kiss FM play, Radio 1 play, and stuff like that. So yeah, that was a fantastic feeling as well, man. So yeah, I've been buzzing off that, and then decided just to what, I'm just gonna do it all, man. I'm gonna do music, I'm gonna do content creating, I'm just gonna be creative as possible, bro. So I'm back,
great.
man.
No, I'm as a listener of Love Island, a watcher, I should say, of Love Island.
Of course, yeah.
I would have been exposed to it. A friend of mine, who's kind of like a budding musician, in a band, had their song played in Made in Chelsea on one of the episodes. So it's mad how people kind of these breaks and stuff. It's nuts.
Crazy.
But of course, our collective kind of mutual interest, of course, being Arsenal, has led us to where we are today, talking about a season that has been, quite frankly, horrendous in terms of fortune and luck, or a lack of that, of course. And Arsenal find themselves now with a massive end to their campaign, with a Champions League side, Real Madrid, lacking Kai Havertz, Gabriel Jesus, Takehiro Tomiyasu, and of course, most recently, Gabriel Magalhaes as well. We're going to talk a little bit about kind of the latest news. We're going to go ahead and look ahead also to that game against Everton that is taking place at 12:30 this afternoon. But let me just kind of get your thoughts more generally, Tops, on kind of how you feel the season's gone, pluses, cons, and your overall sense.
Yeah, man. Obviously, during the start of the season, obviously, my prediction was I was pretty confident Arsenal were going to win the league. I felt like the trajectory of the team the last two seasons, the fact that we finished second both seasons, even finishing 2 points behind last year, I thought this was going to be the season that we were just going to get over the line and do it. I felt like the team was much more experienced in terms of the title races and stuff like that. So going into the season, I was much confident. But I will have to say, during that summer transfer window, when we didn't get that striker or that key forward, I know we got Sterling on loan, but when we didn't get that key forward, that's when I start to think, is it going to be our season? And from the off, bro, from the time that Marino got injured in training and was out for, I don't know, X amount of weeks, I thought, you know what, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel right. And then from that, bro, it's just really had like a trickle effect. Odegaard getting injured third game in, then obviously Saka getting injured in December, out for months, Ben White getting injured. And it just feels like there's been a plethora of injuries, plethora of reasons why we've never had a full fit squad lined up ready to go at games week in, week out. But yeah, I feel like that has obviously played a little bit of a factor. But even so, with Arsenal, I have been disappointed with the way we've been playing. I feel like we've lost that little bit of creative spark. Even when we've had Saka in certain games, I feel like we've not been as fluent as we would want to be, especially going into the last season where we were beating teams 5-0, 6-0. Fantastic results, fantastic performances. I do feel like we've struggled, especially sometimes at home as well, to break down that mid to low block. Certain opportunities we're relying heavily on set pieces, which obviously is a good thing. Having that in your Arsenal is absolutely a brilliant thing, to be honest with you. But I feel like we've been heavily leaning towards that a bit too much. And yeah, I've not really been happy, like I said, with the performances in the whole as a general. I think we've seen snippets of what we can do when teams like come out and really want to attack us. We've seen it against Manchester City 5-1. We've seen it against Crystal Palace 5-1, Sporting Lisbon. So there is elements still there, but I do feel like Mikel Arteta and sometimes the players as well probably need to take a bit more responsibility in terms of trying to break down that mid to low block. Obviously, it's difficult, and we've seen teams in the past struggle to do it. But I think that's been a real hindrance to our season, because we have struggled against some of the lower teams that we've normally struggled against in previous seasons. You look at the likes of Fulham, we've dropped points obviously away at Craven Cottage. Newcastle, we struggled against them. We dropped points at home to Aston Villa as well. So it's kind of the similar teams. West Ham, we lost at home again, like we did last year. So it's kind of the similar teams and similar problems that we're obviously facing every single season now, the last couple of seasons. So for me, in terms of the style of play, I definitely feel like we need to maybe create another feather in our boat, so to speak, something a bit different, maybe from open play, maybe relying or giving some of the responsibility differently to some other players rather than Odegaard. You've seen the likes of Odegaard really struggle after his injury. I thought the first 3 or 4 games when he came back, he was absolutely tremendous against, I think it was Sporting Lisbon, against Chelsea when he came back, West Ham and Nottingham Forest. But then after that, I feel like, he's been really a shadow of himself, man, poor performances. And he even came out himself and said, you know what, this is not the level that I should be at. So for me, his performances and his form has been a massive worry. Obviously, we know he's a good quality player, but he's just not been at the standard this season. And I feel like a lot of pressure has been given to him to do quite a lot of roles. He's having to press like a 9, having to play deep like a number 8, then he's having to create like a 10. There's a lot of responsibilities for that one play, and I feel like maybe we need to kind of simplify his game a little bit, get him just to do one specific role, and then have other plays contribute more in the creative standpoint. So yeah, obviously going in it disappointed, and for me as well, Tom, like the one big thing I had this season is not particularly obviously winning the league. Obviously I was confident that we could do it, but for me it was just to try and get some kind of silverware, anything like League Cup, FA Cup, anything, just to real give these players a taste of what it is to win some silverware together as a team. I feel like that's really, really important just for us to go forward in terms of we know what it takes in the pressure situations to get over the line and win a pressurized situation, whether it's a final, semi-final, whatever. I feel like it'd be a very good experience for the players. And the disappointing thing for me is that we got knocked out by Man United, a terrible Man United team at home, where, we should have won the game. We had the chances to do it. And it's similar kind of situations that we had last year against, obviously, Liverpool, where we had loads of chances, didn't put them away in the third round of the FA Cup. So, yeah, I think the Cups have been a real disappointment for me. And obviously injuries also played a key factor as well. But overall, how also been playing from open play, I feel like is a bit of a worry too. I think we do need to create some kind of different openings and opportunities in that area of the pitch to make sure that we're not struggling and creating not that many chances for our forwards going forward, man. But look, we still got Real Madrid obviously coming up, so there's still hope for a bit of silverware. It's going to be extremely difficult, I know. But you know what? Football is a funny game, man. Things where you think might go a certain way, they end up going the other way. So fingers crossed we can do something, man. But that's kind of my overall feelings of the season. Bit of a disappointment, hoping that we could have won some kind of silverware. But injuries obviously have played a key factor, and I feel like Arteta has to learn, as well as the players have to learn from this season. And so we go again next season, man. But
a really good summary, I think, of thoughts that was shared by plenty. I remember, as you said before, those injuries, we were having these discussions about why Arsenal don't look as perhaps so free-flowing as they did the previous season, where they were putting 4, 5, 6 past teams on a relatively regular basis. I mean, if you look at the Premier League table, this season, obviously, we sit in the same position in terms of kind of where we're at, but we've scored 55 goals this season in the league. last season we scored, I think it was 90,
Wow.
which was a record, and whereas, we're a long way off that with 35 goals off of that with 8 games remaining in the league. I can't see Arsenal scoring, that many between now and the end of the campaign. And obviously, yes, that's been affected by losing Saka for 4 months, losing Odegaard for 2 months, losing Kai Havertz for half the season, Jesus for half the season. Yes, that's affected that. But as you pointed out, there were areas where we could have addressed that point. We could have acted in January. We could have maybe done something in the summer. I have my arguments with the summer, but certainly not with January. January was a failure without a doubt in terms of not bringing in that attacking depth that we needed before Havertz even got injured. But certainly we already knew that there was an issue with Jesus. And of course, the big kind of story of post-January, if you like, is that there is work already going into the summer tops. And that's, with Andrea Berta being appointed as the new sporting director, we're hearing a lot of stories regarding transfers. There's real confidence that Martin Zubimendi will be an Arsenal player this summer. There's stories about Victor Gyökeres becoming more of a prominent attack kind of striker figure in terms of Arsenal's plans. Nico Williams, another player as well. I mean, if I was to say hypothetically, and I don't necessarily like doing this where you see like those tweets where people put 4 names, these numbers next to them, these 8 players leaving, and that's the summer. But if I was to hypothetically say in terms of incomings that Arsenal landed, Zubimendi, let's say Joan Garcia, the backup goalkeeper as well from Espanyol, Nico Williams, Gyökeres, and then I'll say an unnamed kind of attacking midfielder as well on top of that, because I feel that's an area that needs depth with Fabio Vieira being sold in the summer as well, and how much we've lacked kind of another attacking option there this season. How would you feel about that as the summer transfer window?
Yes, I'll be very, very happy with that, Tom, to be honest with you. I'll be more than happy with that because the positions that you've obviously named there, the striker position, we've been needing to replace or get a striker since Aubameyang left, really. And that, how long did he go? What, 2021, 2022? So that's a position that we really need to strengthen for a long, long time, especially with the left wing as well. Obviously, we've already really brought in Jesus and Trossard since Arteta has come in as those attacking options. So I feel like that position as a whole has been pretty much neglected. So for me, anything that's attacking, and for me as well, what would really excite me if we got those kind of deals over the line first, because then that's when you know you can relax and feel, you know what, we've got those deals over the line. The striker that everyone wants, every Arsenal fan can agree that we need a striker. Havertz obviously has done a decent job, but ultimately we all know that to get over the line, we want something a bit more, so a player that can provide a bit different to what he can do. Obviously, he does great things off the ball in terms of link-up play and stuff like that. But I feel like we do need a goal scorer in the squad, someone that just hunts goals, needs goals, and someone that we can rely on to score in those crucial games. So for me, that as a first would be great. And then again, that left winger side. We've seen Martinelli, we've seen Trossard for a number of years now, and I think there's again a feeling within the supporters that we need an upgrade on that position too. And even if you do that, that means you could potentially, if you keep one of Martinelli, Trossard, you could move them to be Saka's cover if you want to do that, or you can push Ethan Nwaneri as the Saka cover if you want to do that. So then you kind of fill in more obviously gaps and holes in the squad in terms of depth wise as well as bringing in the added quality into the obviously that attacking lineup. So for me, the striker and the left-sided forward is definitely a must. And like you said, if we can try and get a couple of midfielders, whether it's like you said, a Zubimendi coming in to try and replace, because I do feel like Jorginho and probably Partey will be departing in the summer. So I think it is imperative to try and even replace the numbers wise, because Arteta has come out and said that we have got a really, really thin squad. And obviously the games are going to be pretty much the same next season, as well as having a World Cup on the end of it. So you've got to realize that we probably need to bolster our squad numbers wise, just so we can have a bit more wiggle room to rotate certain players. Like, we're not playing Declan Rice every single game. We're not even playing someone like a Gabriel every single game, just to kind of ease up the load. So there's not so much pressure of them to perform at a high level, high intensity through the obviously duration of the season. So
what do you make of Berta as well? Is like, just because there was a lot of names, in the fold of the sporting director. Thomas Rosicky was mentioned, Thiago Scuro at Monaco was mentioned. Obviously, Jason Ato, who is already in the kind of position as assistant sporting director, was mentioned as well. Roberto Alabe from Real Sociedad was talked about quite a bit. I think there's someone else that I'm forgetting. Dan Ashworth, I think, was mentioned also potentially. So it is Andrea Berta. I mean, I'm not asking you to be an expert in what he's done or even know who he was prior to him being linked to the position, but having, I'm sure, heard a bit more about him since his appointment. What do you make of that? Because I called it a pretty un-Arsenal type appointment.
Yeah, I was very shocked by it, but pleasantly surprised. I think it's been a fantastic acquisition to get Berta in, because I feel like he ticks all the boxes that Arsenal really need right now. I think they needed a sporting director which was very much experienced, probably more experienced than Arteta, just to have a different balance in terms of structure. You've got Arteta, the obviously young, inspiring manager. Then you've got Berta, the more experienced, seasoned kind of veteran in his position. I think with Edu, it was kind of like similar in terms of Edu wasn't as obviously experienced as probably maybe Arsenal fans would have liked in terms of getting loads of obviously high profile deals over the line before coming to Arsenal. So I think Berta ticks those boxes. You see the plethora of players he's bought in for obviously Atletico Madrid, the likes of João Felix and Morata, and the list goes on and on. Rodri, Cunha, etc., etc. So the fact that he's got a history of spending big money, knows that he's got the obviously the capability of getting those big deals over the line, and that's what I think Arsenal need. Really, we need a window where we can get and attract those big money signings, especially in those forward areas, because with forward players you have to spend the big money, you have to lure them with the big wages and the big transfer fees. Unfortunately, especially when we're at a level where we're just about trying to get to the pinnacle, where we need that bit of stardust, a bit of star quality in those forward areas to really push us over the line. So I feel like because he's got the history of doing that is obviously another plus as well. And he's experienced and he's won leagues under his ownership, under his ownership, in terms of him being him being the sporting director at Atletico Madrid, and then winning 2 La Liga titles, 2 Europa Leagues. They won trophies competing against 2 of the biggest clubs in the world in Barcelona and Real Madrid. So he knows what it's like to really be in that position and get over the line against all the top level teams or all the top level players. So I was very, very surprised, but happily surprised. And already you see obviously the reports from David Ornstein and other obviously media outlets that he's having a lot of say, which I think is key, man. I feel like you do need a few more voices in that area. I think like obviously Arteta knowing what players he wants is good, but sometimes I do feel you kind of need like another voice there. Just say, you know what, I know you want this player, but maybe have a look at this one. You might not have even thought about having this one, but if you have a look at this one, this might be something you want as well, just a different kind of perspective. So it's not so like one way where it has to be this player or nothing. There's a bit more wiggle room, a bit more alternatives. I feel that's a good thing as well. So if he could get these deals over the line, Tom, I feel like it would be a massive tick in his reign already, because like I said, the striker and the left winger positions are positions we've needed to fill for 2-3 years, and we've not managed to do it for whatever reason. So if you can come in and do it straight away, for me, he'd be in good graces in my book, to be honest with you, bro.
Yeah, absolutely. I think obviously there's going to be some interesting, thoughts around him. I've already seen some people a little bit hesitant, around, which is fair enough. We don't know too much about what he's going to do. I think there's a lot of misconceptions flying around about his time at Atletico Madrid, because there was a lot of kind of cooks involved in what was going on there. Diego Simeone, a very influential manager there as well, where he's got to work with another very influential manager in Arteta here. And it was interesting to hear what kind of he said, Arteta, what he said specifically about Berta, but he said, we've already got our plans. I asked Arteta about, you've got those established plans. You've now got someone coming in with those, in your mind, you'll have an idea of what you want to do for the summer. And he talked about, it's his job to twist those plans and make them better. That's why he's come in. So that, I think, was a really, really good sign. Just lastly, before we go and look ahead to today's game against Everton, there was a press conference yesterday. We're recording this on Friday, but yesterday, in terms of how time travel works with these pre-recordings. And there was some really interesting stuff. Obviously, he talked about how Ben White and Jurriën Timber, he's hopeful that they might be involved today, which is great. Really good news. Obviously, the big news this week has been Gabriel's injury. And there was a part of the show which I can talk about, in this pre-recorded, because this show not going out until, as you're listening to now, listeners, at 8 a.m. on Saturday. But there was part from the embargo that I really wanted to discuss with you, Tops, because he was asked about how, I'll read you the question. The question came from Ihsan Khan of the Mail, and it said, Ihsan said, going forward, particularly next season, could it mean players like Saka, players like Havertz, who have very crucial roles in the team, might have to not play every game like they do this season? Not because it's your fault, it's because of the injury risk and the number of games. That was the question. And Arteta kind of, I've never seen him go into this much detail specifically kind of, and this descriptiveness, and kind of also explaining a little bit behind the curtain more than we have. So I'll read you what he said to that question. He said, yeah, I don't know. So we have those discussions. I don't know how we're going to do it. For example, we have a situation with Gabriel Magalhaes during the West Ham game. Now, that's the West Ham game not the one just gone, the one back at the end of November, where we absolutely battered them. And then Gabriel, after that game, didn't play against Man United, didn't play against Monaco, and didn't play against Fulham, and came back for the fourth game after that. He said, we had a situation with Gabby Magalhaes during the West Ham game. He felt something in his hamstring. We played 3 days later, 6 days later, and 9 days later. 3 days later, he said he was ready to play with a grade 1 hamstring issue. He said, I'm not feeling anything. I want to play. There was a massive fight not to play him. So he didn't play in that game against Man United. Day 6, this one, definitely, I have to play. Everybody's like, there is still a chance of a risk if he plays. We decided after a big fight, again, not to play him. Day 9, so this, I think, is the Fulham game. So we've played Man United, we've played Monaco, and then Fulham comes after that. He misses these games. Day 9, another game. And that was when, if you remember, Kivior started against Fulham and Raul Jimenez kind of ran past him to score their opening goal. But yeah, day 9, another game. This one, for sure, Gabriel, he's said here. The doc said there is a slight risk he could miss 5, 6, 7 weeks if he has an injury after this. Jeez. We decided not to play him. On day 12, he plays. But I was very tempted on day 6 to play him. If I would have played him on day 6 and he has the injury that he's sustained now against Fulham and he misses 4 months, he went, that's what he did in the presser. He goes, like, I would get hammered, is what he said. He was like, I would be hammered. Because, and he would be, you know, imagine if he'd have got like that grade 1 that they are aware of, 3 days. Gabby says, I'm ready, I can play. He plays, gets an injury. If he's missing for that chunk of the season, and I know we struggled during that period, but we would absolutely be dropping even more points without Saka, without Gabby. It would be an absolute nightmare. We may not get where we wanted to go in the Champions League. You never know. You know, we might not even be talking about being in a quarterfinal against Real Madrid. He carries on by saying, so sometimes you protect the player due to this could happen. And then when the player is totally protected, then this happens as well, which is obviously talking about Gabby now, you know. Yeah. Gabriel came back early from Brazil because he was suspended for their second game, had a week of rest plus, I think, before this game. And after a week of rest, has a hamstring injury. Like, it's the most ridiculous thing, such a backwards thing. And he says, and then when the player is totally protected, this happens. There is an element, guys, that we cannot control. So we try to do our best. The medical staff, I suffer for them as well for everything that they do because I know how they feel very responsible for that. But it's difficult to put just something into something when there is a lot of thought about how we can make decisions. So I know that was quite a lot and a lot of wordage from Arteta there, more than we usually get, which is why I wanted to read it out, because it was a really good answer and gave us a very good glimpse behind the curtain of what we previously didn't know about that situation. I mean, it was so unknown about that Gabriel injury back last year that Transfermarkt have that listed as a knee injury that he suffered. So, and it wasn't, it was a hamstring injury. So after hearing kind of what Arteta's got to say about that, how does it make you feel about, there's a lot of discourse right now. Arteta's under a lot of scrutiny saying, you know, he's overplaying players, overworking players. And it's his fault that we're getting as many hamstring injuries as we are. Listening to what he said there, and that's his account, that's one side of the story. But what do you make of that?
Yeah, very interesting, man. And obviously he did the right thing early on in the season, not playing him like he was saying, because if he would have been missing for the next 4 or 5 months after that, obviously West Ham, the first game, God knows where we'd be, Tom. We probably wouldn't even be in the top 4 or 5 based off how important Gabriel's been this season. Probably been our best defender again this season. But yeah, in terms of obviously this call about obviously Arteta overplaying players, I do feel like there is a point where Arteta does need to maybe trust more in his bench, and maybe not even just like even starting these obviously squad players, but maybe bringing off some of the key players earlier on in the game so you can utilize maybe a Tierney or a Zinchenko a little bit more just to ease up the pressure of obviously people like Martinelli playing 90 minutes and Saka before obviously got injured playing 90 minutes. And maybe that could have a bit of obviously inkling of improving obviously the injury standpoint. Because to be fair, it is a bit of a strange one how we have got 4 or 5 hamstring injuries if you include Reece Nelson this season. You could talk of Havertz, Saka, Martinelli, Gabriel, Reece Nelson. Yeah, crazy, man, how it's done. I mean, is that a case of, you know, extra Champions League games, extra, obviously, pressure in the Premier League, trying to catch Liverpool, getting to a Carabao Cup semi-final? Normally, we're out in the 3rd or 4th round. So all these kind of games and minutes do add up, especially when you're playing similar kind of players for similar amount of minutes. For me, I feel like, again, it can be a bit of unluckiness, like you said. He's come back, he's rested from that game against, obviously, Brazil against Argentina. He was suspended, He came back early, had a week's rest, and still blew his hamstring. Still, like, Kai Havertz did it in training. blocking a shot. Like these things happen at the most ridiculous times where there's like nothing really you would suggest they're gonna happen. So yeah, it's a bit of a tricky one to really pinpoint, but I feel like, I think Arteta will probably say himself, like, if he did have a bigger squad, there'll be a bit more wiggle room to try and rest Gabriel for a few more games, or Saka, or etc., which is what a lot of fans are even saying. We just want a bit more depth in the squad so we can rest these players a little bit more, or not even rest, just rotate. More that's probably more the right word. Just rotate. Give obviously other squad members minutes while you can rotate Saka, so he's a bit more fresher for, let's say, Real Madrid or whatever game's coming up. So yeah, I do feel that's probably something you can take him on the chin for next season, getting a bigger squad so we've got a bit more options to play around with. But yeah, the Gabriel thing is obviously disappointing. Obviously, he's going to be out for a month, or out for the rest of the season, going to be out for months. Hopefully, he comes back the same player as he was. Same with Havertz. And obviously, same with Saka now. He's just come back with these hamstring injuries, especially when you've had surgery. It's very, very difficult. So, yeah, for me, man, I feel like, very interesting, obviously, what you said about the injury. And hopefully, we're taking more precaution in the rest of the players as well, man. I feel like that's probably what they're doing now with Ben White, considering he's feeling a little bit of, obviously, twinge in his knee, just had surgery on it, and they're choosing not to risk it, whereas before, maybe they would have played him with that injury. We've seen that he was playing injured, obviously, pre his operation. So, hopefully, Arteta is starting to learn in terms of not really risking players if he doesn't need to, because obviously long-term wise, it can have a massive, obviously, detriment to the team and obviously the player. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens with obviously the injuries probably next season now, to see if it can obviously ease up a bit. But sometimes, Tom, you just have those seasons where the injuries are just, you just can't help it, man. Like, you just have injury after injury after injury after injury, and you never have your full squad or team at the same time all fit. And I feel like that's a little bit like this season. But again, I think it's up to the team and the rest of the squad just to try and adapt and adjust to it, man, and just see, just for them to try their best and do as well as they can in obviously the remaining games, man. Because again, it is a squad game. It's not just about the first 11. And if you can contribute, even if it's towards the end of the season, and help the team, then obviously that's very much welcome, man. But yeah, we'll have to see what happens with that, bro.
We will. Yeah, I think obviously what the bottom line is that we, as on the outside, don't have all the information as well. And I know a lot of people draw conclusions and are very kind of forthright on their views on things about it. But the reality is that we don't have all the info. And that little insight from Arteta there gave us a bit more, of the reality of the situation. And I hope that is taken in by people that need to hear it, because it was important, I think, to have that little bit of insight from Arteta, and gives you a little bit of context around, how we form our opinions on those matters. So we're going to take a quick break and go now to part 2, which is going to be a preview ahead of today's game against Everton. All right, this is part 2 of the show, where we're going to be looking ahead to this afternoon's game. I know as this is going out, this is only going to be relevant for about 4 hours until it is then out of date. But it's still worth talking about. So I've got Tops's 11 up on the board here. Do you want to talk us through your reasons behind your selection and who you've gone for?
Yeah, all right, Tom. So this is obviously on the assumption that Timber's obviously going to be fit. And I just assume that Ben White, even if he is fit, is probably just going to be fit enough to make the bench. So I've gone with this, obviously, Team Timber at right back, who's obviously been tremendous at right back all season. Saliba, Kivior, left-sided centre-back. That might be one that obviously few people are like and ahhing out, but I do feel like he probably is going to have to play against Real Madrid, with Calafiori probably not set to come back. And Ben White, even if he is back, he's probably not going to be able to start in level speed to start against someone like Real Madrid. So yeah, Kivior looks like he's going to be the real option. The left-sided centre-back, naturally left-footed. And yeah, I'd play him there, trying to get him, obviously, his first start in a while in the Premier League. Obviously, Lewis Skelly, I feel like he's our best left-back, especially in current form as well. So I play him there. Thomas Partey, Declan Rice, and Odegaard. I'm just kind of using this game as kind of like a test run for the Real Madrid game. I do feel like, again, we need to try and create a bit more chemistry, a bit more creativity within those front three, those middle three, because I feel like that's going to be the three that plays against Real Madrid. So this is kind of like a dress rehearsal, so to speak, in terms of what probably team is going to play against Real Madrid. And then my front three, Marino, the guy in form, our new number 9, obviously scoring again in his last obviously 2 games at the Emirates. Him up front. Martinelli, who I was very impressed with in the second half. That's more what I want to see from Martinelli, man. I want to see that decisiveness, that good decision making in the final third, fantastic flick into the path of Saka as well, and a good little layoff into Marino for that second goal too. That's the kind of play I want to see him do on a more of a regular basis, man. So yeah, I feel like Martinelli definitely deserves a start on the left. And then Bukayo Saka, man, maybe a controversial one, just come back from injury. Obviously scored his goal, and I just feel like, again, if we're gonna probably start him against Real Madrid, it'll be wise to maybe start him in the game before. Don't have to play him obviously all of the game. Could take him off at half time, really, if you want, but just to get that feel of starting the game again after so much months out. Obviously, it's a bit different to coming on. And yeah, he'll probably be buzzing from adrenaline from scoring what turned out to be the winning goal as well. So yeah, Saka on the right, probably give him 45, maybe take him off for Ethan at half time or 60th minute or whatever it may be. And yeah, going forward, that will probably be my team. Obviously, we've got Trossard on the bench as well. You could potentially bring on too. So yeah, that would be the team I'd go for, and hopefully we'd get the win with that team, bro.
Nice one. Yeah, I've been far more cautious.
Okay. Listen, I can understand that, to be
fair. Yeah, for sure. And I've gone back and forth, about this idea of whether or not Saka should start and then be taken off, because the balance of how many minutes you give him.
Yeah.
At the same time, I don't want to get him kicked by James Tarkowski like McAllister was, for Liverpool. And that's the worry when you're going to play teams like Everton, who are more physical sides in the league, as you worry about what that's going to have on the team. And, we've got the depth in Nwaneri and Trossard, I think, to give Martinelli and Saka maybe some protection for this game. In terms of the defence, I've gone slightly different. I know Partey at right back is not something that fans like to see at all. The ironic thing is that the last time I did this, and I got absolute pelters when I did this last time, and I put him in my my lineup for what I wanted to see. He had an excellent game. He played right back, and he was and I remember getting like messages in the Discord server, and I was sending messages. I think I was sending like sarcastic smiley faces. I'm trying to find the game that it was. I think it was it the Aston Villa home game? Or I think it might have been the Aston Villa home game. But he had a really good game at right back, and I remember sending messages about it because, as I say, he was very, very good there. Yeah. He wasn't the reason why we didn't win that game. So my feeling is that I trust Partey more at right back than I do Kiwior at left centre half. And that might be harsh, but I've seen far more mistakes from Kiwior than I have done from Partey, even with the influence of Partey without him being in the midfield does have a knock-on effect. I trust Jorginho as well. He's a player that I have a lot of respect for and what his contributions are to the team. And that's why he's there. Timber playing, with Saliba at the back gives me a lot more encouragement as well. And especially because it's not just the fact that Kiwior's there. It's that he's next to Miles Lewis-Skelly. And even though Miles Lewis-Skelly is incredibly impressive, as we saw in the game against Fulham, he can get caught out. Yeah. And he has been caught in the past. It was caught against Liverpool early in the season. He was caught out in this game. Of course, he had a little bit of a chaotic game against PSV away from home as well. And I think having Saliba there rather than Kiwior would help a lot with that. So that's kind of my explanation. But I can predict that. Oh, man. And then Ødegaard Rice is obviously, I think, the obvious picks there. We don't have much choice in that area. I've rested Saka. I've rested Martinelli, Nwaneri, and Trossard. I think are more than good enough, for this game. The Premier League is hard to look at it as anything other than that we are kind of coasting to second place at the moment. There's a chance that we may finish below Forest. They got more motivations than us even right now. But we have got a very favourable run in to end the season, so you'd expect us to finish second between now and the end of the campaign. But I think this game is just so secondary to Real Madrid. He was asked, I think it was Ian from TalkSport asked him, out of the two, Real Madrid is more important. He was like, no, Everton is the next game. It's very
typical Arteta answer, isn't
it? It's so much more important, and I think that the Real Madrid will play a big role in our selection here. Everton, of course, are coming off the back of much less recovery than us. They played on Wednesday. We played on Tuesday. It was a big effort from them in that game against Liverpool. They only just lost that game 1-0. Should have not lost that game with the chances that they had, of course, and some of the bad luck they had with just the goal that was the goal that should have been from Better that hit the post. But yeah, I think that it's still going to be tough. This is the last game that we're playing up there at Goodison Park. It's interesting to see the dynamic of Arteta facing his old boss, which he has done a number of times, David Moyes, but I think this is the first time that he's facing him at Goodison Park as the Everton manager again, which is a really strange thing for those of us that remember the Barclays period of the Premier League.
Yeah.
Were playing with Mikel Arteta in midfield under David Moyes. It's very strange. So, it's Martin Odegaard for me just needs a massive performance. Need a really, really big display from him as soon as possible. Get back into form. We saw he can do it. He did it for Norway in the break. He needs to do it now for Arsenal. I'm going to round off the show with a prediction. So, scoreline and scorers from you, please, Tops.
Oh, okay. See, what coming into the show, I was adamant it's going to be a draw. It's going to be a draw, but I think I'm going to go 2-1. I'm going to be positive. I'm going to say 2-1 scorers. Martinelli and Saka. I'm going to go with Martinelli and Saka for the scorers, and then Arsenal to win 2-1 away at Goodison Park.
Nice one. Yeah, I don't see loads of goals, really. I think it could be a low one. I'm going to go 1-0 Arsenal. Ethan Nwaneri getting the goal, just an absolute banger from outside the box, as we've come so used to seeing from him. And then just seeing it out and getting the 1-0 victory and taking that as momentum into the game against Real Madrid, which is a whole other kettle of fish. But Tops, thank you so much, mate, for your time this morning. I really appreciate it. Thank you for listening. Do tell people where they can find you and what you're going to be up to.
Yeah, so you can find me on my obviously brand new channel now, T Chanzo Sports. Just hit 2,000 subscribers, so big everyone up for who's already subscribed to me already. Over there I'll be doing obviously Arsenal watch along content as well as previews, reviews, reactions to press conference, as well as other games, Man United, Man City, Liverpool, etc., etc. So it's all about all teams in the Premier League, really. So yeah, T Chanzo Sports is where you can find me for obviously more content from me, man. So but yeah, thank you very much for having me, Tom. It's been a pleasure to talk to you again about football, man.
Pleasure's all mine, mate. It's good to speak to you again. I'll make sure to leave a tag for your channel, of course, in today's video title and in the description. So, listeners, make sure. Let's see if we can get him to 3,000 subscribers. That'd be pretty cool. Make sure that you are subscribed to Tops' channel, and he's an absolutely great lad. So, you will not be let down by his content, I am sure. And obviously, everything else, do drop a like here. Subscribe to the channel here if you're not already. We do these shows every single morning at 8 a.m. Tomorrow, I'll be back home and, of course, discussing that game against Everton a little bit later on today. If you happen to be listening to TalkSport, I think I'm going to be on air just before kickoff as well. So if you happen to listen to the game through there, I think it'll probably be around half an hour or so before kickoff, or just before that half an hour. So check out that. And of course, I'll be back with you as usual for next week, where there is, I think there's a game next week. Is there a game? Something going on
Brentford at home?
Yeah, maybe. So, I mean,
R5?
dead game. But no, we'll cross that crazy bridge when we start to get a lot close to it. Of course, more so I think on Monday. The main thing is just to keep those fingers crossed for no more injuries at the moment. That's the key way that we're sitting in right now. But thank you so much, everybody, for listening and tuning in. Really appreciate your time. I hope you appreciated this pre-recorded episode, despite the fact that we haven't got the usual live show. But as you know, we produce some fantastic guests here, and Tops has certainly been one of those. A top guest, you might say.
Love it. Player words.
Have a fantastic rest of your day, people. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful, and as always, up the Arsenal.